I want to switch to the Republicans now, talk about them a little bit. Obviously, it's all about the delegates and the delegate count. Ted Cruz had a really good sweep in Colorado. What does Donald Trump need to do here?
Well, he needs to win, and he needs to win decisively. The good news for him is that the next set of states that are coming up are ones in which he has a good chance to do that. He has to win and deprive Ted Cruz of some incursions into portions, for example, in New York State, where he could win congressional districts and take some delegates away from Donald Trump. So he has to keep winning. Donald Trump has to keep winning at about the highest level he has won so far. In other words, he's had some good nights. He has to perform that well all the way through California. Then he's got to pick up his game on the secondary fight here, which is about who the actual delegates are going to be when they go to the convention, as a hedge against not getting to the magic number of 1,237, which would give him a majority on the first ballot. If he can't get to that magic number, he needs those delegates to be in his corner so that when they get to the second and third ballot, they're still with him, that they don't peel off and go to another candidate. He has had some difficulty with that fight. He needs to get back up to speed to do that. And then he needs to make sure all the delegates he's won already, just that he keeps everybody on the team. In previous contested conventions, the process of making sure no delegates flip when they move from that to that second ballot, that's a hard thing to do. You got thousands of people, and you got to watch all of them. And the minute they move, you got to have a person ready to deploy to that delegate to get them back on the team. And that's quite an operation and that all would happen in Cleveland. So it's happening in real time. Everybody's smushed together in the convention hall. It's a logistical challenge, really, that nobody's prepared for. There hasn't been one of these fights since 1976. The technology's different. The people are different. The news media is different. It's brave new territory.
Absolutely. I want to talk about the brave new media age. I want to show a satirical front page from the Boston Globe that was put out on Sunday, today, imagining a Trump presidency. We've heard a lot this week about the friction really at the top levels of Trump's campaign, especially between Corey Lewandowski and this new convention strategist, Paul Manafort. What do you make of all this?
Well, the Manafort, he clearly has come in, and he is almost the new face of the campaign. That's a little silly to say because, of course, Donald Trump is the face of the campaign. But Paul Manafort has been out talking about the Trump strategy, and there is a bit of a pivot from just winning and focusing on the actual primaries that are before us, and then focusing on the second stage, the naming of the delegates, the maintenance of the delegates, and making sure they stay on the team if there's multiple ballots of voting at the convention in Cleveland. So he's in charge of kind of both of those things, bringing some order to the process, but also having a sort of sense of vision in terms of what needs to be done so that you don't get to Cleveland and not have prepared. Clearly, Ted Cruz has prepared very thoroughly, and the preparation is paying off in these delegate fights. So the Trump team needs to kind of make sure they're at least in the competition. It is a fascinating test of a central claim of the Trump candidacy. And what Donald Trump has said is when he gets into the presidency, while much of it will be unfamiliar to him, in fact, all of it, including a lot of the issues, that he has a unique capacity and capability in American life to learn about things quickly, deploy resources, and then succeed at a level that no one in American history has succeeded so far. So that's a tall order, and that's essentially what he's being asked to do here with this delegate fight. He has done that and been that successful in the winning of the primaries, beating every pundit, beating lots of professional politicians in a way that really nobody was able to expect. And he's been able to do it over a sustained period of time with a lot of negative media. So that's in one stage he's been able to do that. In this second stage, in the getting of the delegates and the maintaining the advantage in Cleveland, that's a whole new test. And we're seeing him try to see if he can get on top of that test as well.
I want to go back to one of the things you said. Ted Cruz has been very, very organized. Do you think the hiring of Paul Manafort is too late for the Trump campaign?
It depends. If you're ahead as much as Donald Trump is and will be expected to be if he does well in New York and Pennsylvania and Rhode Island, Connecticut, and these other states where he's likely to do well, success can make up for some raggedness. And because in general, and we talked about this on the show, if it gets to a delegate fight and Donald Trump doesn't get the magic number that he needs, he will still have the best argument in the bunch, which is, I got more votes and I got more delegates. I should be the nominee. That's a very short, simple, smart way to go forward. Now, the Kasich and Cruz camps will say, well, but the rules are, and then they'll talk about how in conventions there are rules and there are the delegates, and that is a less easy sell. Certainly, there are a lot of people who want to stop Donald Trump for whom that is a very easy sell because they don't want Donald Trump to be the nominee. But to the bulk of people who picked him, if for example, one example of this is in the exit polls in Wisconsin. This was a bad state for Donald Trump. He did not do well in the polls. And yet 6 of 10 people who answered the questions in the exit polls said they believed anybody who had the most delegates going into the convention should be named the nominee. That's kind of the general beginning proposition for voters in the Republican Party. And so when Donald Trump says, well, they're stealing the nomination from me, he will have a fertile audience. So does Paul Manafort have to do a lot of catch up? Yes. But Donald Trump still has the numbers, and he still has the big argument, which at the end of the day, he also has the megaphone because of the way he's been covered. So that can make up for some raggedness in his detail-oriented approach to these delegates.
Well, I want to read a tweet Donald Trump wrote just about 2 hours ago. I win a state in votes and then get non-representative delegates because they are offered all sorts of goodies by Cruz campaign. Bad system. He says that he understands the system, but then, makes these statements. He wants to quickly, he says, learn the presidency when he doesn't understand this delegate situation. It seems like at times. Do we have the confidence he'll be able to learn the presidency, or what do you make of this?
Well, it's a test, and voters will have to see whether if his inability to handle the test of the delegates. Again, he did pretty well. He's doing pretty well in the voting part. So they'll have to weigh those two things. It's interesting, though, to watch him respond. He's doing, of course, which is the only thing he can do, which is he's getting beat in the back rooms, or not really back rooms. It's all public, and the rules are all published. But he's getting beaten in this other competition for the delegates. Because basically Ted Cruz is playing every possible angle, all within the rules as far as everybody knows. Nobody has said other than Donald Trump has said that there's any illegality going on here, but Ted Cruz is pushing his advantage in every nook and cranny, which is when you ask Donald Trump about his business career and some of the things he's done, some of the advantages he's taken of certain laws, he says, look, that's the way the game is played. I take every advantage I can for myself within the law. And if the laws need to be changed to limit me taking advantage of those things, then we should change the law. So basically, Ted Cruz is behaving the way Donald Trump would in the business world in this fight for delegates. And Donald Trump is doing the best he can, which is to say it's unfair because he's laying the predicate for that fight that'll happen in Cleveland, where he'll say, hey, anything that takes the nomination away from me is unfair.
Always a great conversation. John Dickerson in Washington, thanks so much.
Thanks, Jamie.